David Harrison, and I'm here to talk about my latest book, The York Gran Lodge. Now, the York Gran Lodge, or the Gran Lodge of All England, held at York, as it was known, was first declared in 1726 by Dr. Francis Drake, who was giving a speech at the Merchant Adventurers Hall in York. But, however, the history of the lodge, or the Gran Lodge, goes back further, and it's recorded as the Old York Lodge, having minutes from 1712. And it can even go back further, because there's a list of presidents, as they were known before it was a Gran Lodge, going back to 1705. And most of these presidents were quite prominent local gentlemen, and they would obviously have been attracted to an already established lodge or society in the area. So it's been looked at and wrote about that the lodge, or the Gran Lodge, as traces roots that go back even further, perhaps into the 1600s. By the time we get to 1726, the Gran Lodge of All England, held at York, has been declared, and it's rivalled with the modern Gran Lodge, or the Premier Gran Lodge in London, which was started in 1717. And this rivalry builds up and seems to carry on throughout the 18th century, with the entwined with the history of the York Gran Lodge. Now, by the time we get to the 1730s, the York Gran Lodge seems to be fading away, and there's one last mention of it in 1744 in relation to a Royal Arch meeting, and this is one of the earliest known mentions of the Royal Arch, and this obviously kind of adds to the mystique of the York Gran Lodge, really. It was revived in 1761 by Dr. Francis Drake again, and he led a number of original members in response to a modern lodge that was founded within the city walls of York. And it wasn't long before these modern Freemasons became entwined with the York Gran Lodge and became members. The second phase of the York Gran Lodge was perhaps the most well recorded, and we have a lot of prominent members again that become Grand Masters, and we have a recording of 5 degrees being taken place by the 1770s. The first 3 degrees are our current craft degrees, and the Entered Apprentice, Fellow Craft and Master Mason, and then the Royal Arch was recorded as a 4th degree, and the Knights Templar was recorded as a 5th degree. So they were practicing these 5 degrees. So they were quite progressive, and they'd moved on a lot from the early 18th century, when they appeared to only be using 2 degrees, that of Entered Apprentice and Fellow Craft. There's records in the early 18th century of them opening lodges in places like Scarborough and in Bradford, and they're admitting many local gentlemen all in one day. So it appears that these 2 degrees were performed alongside each other. So they are quite progressive and forward thinking, and as the 18th century progressed, the York Gran Lodge was going from strength to strength. In its second phase, from 1761, it was founding a lot of lodges throughout Yorkshire, and even founded a lodge in Lancashire, which was over the Pennines, over the ancient border, county border. And it seems to have carried on up until the 1790s, the mid-1790s. The last ever minute entry of the York Gran Lodge was in 1792. But some of the lodges, in particular the lodge in Lancashire, which was called the Lodge of Fortitude, which met in Oldham, near Oldham, that seems to have continued up until at least the opening years of the 19th century. There's also a lodge that met in Rotherham called the Druidical Lodge, and this also met into the 1790s as well. They also founded a Knights Templar encampment in Manchester, which by 1795 had concluded that the York Grand Lodge was basically fading away, and they switched allegiance to the Grand Lodge that was run by Thomas Dunkley. And that particular Knights Templar preceptory, as it's now called, is still going to this day. So the York Grand Lodge basically faded away in the opening years of the 19th century. Until recently, a new York Grand Lodge, or Grand Lodge of All England, held at York, was founded in 2006, and this is still going as well. So it's had 3 phases really, and it's a very interesting look at independent Freemasonry, because they consider themselves independent from London. They were rivals with the Gran Logia in London, the premier modern Gran Logia in London, and they also practiced their own degree system. They had their own administration, and they inspired the York Rite, which continues today in America, and that's very popular. And the name continues with this new York Grand Lodge, which is still going today. So it's a very important part of Freemasonry, and founded on the Edwin legend, the Prince Edwin legend, which dates back to the medieval period. And there's a lot of history there in relation to early Freemasonry, with the building of the Minster, very early Minster accounts as well that refer to medieval Masons. So there's a lot of history there in regards to the development of early Freemasonry and independent Freemasonry.